Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Loveland Frog. As someone who is not from Ohio, this is probably the most famous of all the Ohio urban legends I came across. The Loveland Frog is an urban legend that originated in Loveland, Ohio in the 1950s, and according to the legend, a group of local men spotted a humanoid, frog-like creature near the Little Miami River. They claimed that the creature was about 4 feet tall, had leathery skin, and webbed hands and feet. Over the years, there have been several reported sightings of the Loveland Frog, including one in 1972 by a police officer named Ray Shockey. Shockey claimed that he saw a strange creature. It's so funny that his name is Shockey and that he saw like a strange, what is more shocky? You know what I mean? Shockey claimed that he saw a strange creature on the side of the road while on patrol. When he got closer, he saw that it was a creature with leathery skin and frog-like features. Shockey drew his gun and fired at the creature, but it quickly ran away and disappeared. The legend of the Loveland Frog has become a very popular topic among paranormal enthusiasts and cryptozoologists. Some believe that the creature could be an undiscovered species of amphibian or reptile, while others think it could be a hoax or a misidentification of a known animal. Regardless of its origins, the legend of the Loveland Frog has become a part of Ohio folklore, and the creature has become an iconic figure in the world of cryptozoology. In our number 9 spot today, we have Ohio State Reformatory. Also known as Mansfield Reformatory, this spooky place is a former prison located in Mansfield, Ohio. It opened in 1896 and it closed in 1990. The prison is known for its very violent history and inhumane conditions, with reports of harm, bad conditions, and overcrowding. The prison is also rumored to be haunted, with many visitors reporting strange occurrences such as cold spots, unexplained noises, and ghostly apparitions. One of the most famous ghosts said to haunt the prison is that of Helen Glatke, the wife of a former superintendent who died in a car accident outside of the prison. Her spirit is said to still wander the prison, often appearing in the chapel or the administration area. Another famous ghost is that of the ghost in the tower, believed to be the spirit of a former inmate who died in a tragic accident while working in the prison's bell tower. Visitors have reported hearing his screams and seeing his ghostly figure in the tower. The prison has been featured in several films and TV shows, including The Shawshank Redemption and Ghost Adventures, which of course only worked to further popularize its reputation as a haunted location. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Lake Hope Furnace. The Lake Hope Furnace in Ohio has a dark and haunting history that has given rise to many tales of paranormal activity. The furnace was built in the mid-19th century to process iron ore mined in the area. Many workers lost their lives due to the dangerous working conditions, and the furnace was shut down in the early 1900s. Over the years, visitors to the area have reported strange occurrences, including unexplained noises, sudden drops in temperature, and ghostly apparitions. Many believe that the spirits of the workers who died at the furnace still haunt the area. One of the most famous stories associated with the Lake Hope Furnace is that of a ghostly woman in a white dress who is said to wander the grounds. Legend has it that the woman was the wife of a worker who was killed in an accident at the furnace. She is said to be searching for her husband's lost wedding ring, which she believes is still somewhere on the property. Another ghostly tale is that of a former worker who is said to have lost his life here but was never able to leave. Visitors have reported seeing his spirit coming by the furnace in order to light it. While he carries a lantern in one hand, if anybody gets too close to him, it's said he vanishes into the darkness. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Werewolf of Defiance. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance in Ohio dates back to the early 1900s. According to the story, a man who lived in the woods near Defiance was rumored to have transformed into a werewolf on nights of the full moon. Local residents claimed to have heard howls and seen a large wolf-like creature lurking in the shadows. Some even reported close encounters with the creature, which was said to be larger and more ferocious than any normal wolf. Despite numerous attempts to hunt the creature, the werewolf was never caught. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance continues to be a popular topic of discussion in the area, and many believe that the creature still roams the woods to this day. Whether the Werewolf of Defiance was a real creature or simply a product of local folklore remains a mystery. In our number 6 spot today, we have Satan's Hollow. Satan's Hollow is a drainage tunnel located in Blue Ash, Ohio, and it has been long rumored to be the site of supernatural activity. According to legend, the tunnel was once used by a group of Satanists who performed dark rituals and sacrifices within its walls. People who have ventured into the tunnel have reported seeing strange symbols and hearing ghostly whispers. Some have even claimed to have witnessed apparitions of demons and other supernatural beings. The legend of Satan's Hollow has attracted many curious visitors over the years, and some have reported strange experiences such as unexplained temperature drops and sudden feelings of unease. Despite warnings from authorities and the dangers of the tunnel itself, and the fact that the tunnel is technically private property, many continue to seek out the site in search of thrills and scares, looking for the creature behind the most haunting tale of all, the Shadow Man. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Ridges. Athens Lunatic Asylum, also known as the Ridges, is a former mental institution located near Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. It has a long history of ghostly tales and supernatural occurrences. According to legend, the asylum was a site of brutal treatments and patient mistreatment, leading to the creation of restless spirits haunting the halls. There have been reports of shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and inexplicable noises, leading many to believe that the spirits of former patients still linger within the abandoned building. One of the most famous stories is that of Margaret Schilling, a patient who disappeared in 1978 and was found later dead in a hidden attic room. Her decomposing body left a stain on the floor that is said to be impossible to remove. The asylum has become a popular destination for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers, with many claiming to have had chilling experiences while exploring the abandoned institution. Despite its dark history and eerie reputation, the Athens Lunatic Asylum remains an important reminder of the past and the need for compassionate and ethical treatment of those suffering from mental illness. In our number 4 spot today, we have Eugene. This is less of a creepypasta and more of an enduring mystery, and it all starts with a John Doe story. In 1929, the body of an older male appeared on the side of the road in Ohio. No one was ever able to identify who the man was, no one knew where he came from, or really had anything to go on. The only possible clue he had on him was an address, but it just led to a vacant lot. The closest neighbor to the address was named Eugene, so they decided to call this unidentified man Eugene as well. This is where a bit of a twist comes in. Instead of burying him, they decided to keep Eugene on display as a roadside attraction. Truly wish I was making that up, because first of all, Eugene deserves better than that, but also, who wants to see a dead body as a tourist attraction? For 35 years, Eugene was put on display until he was finally laid to rest. This is what has led his tombstone to read, Eugene, found dead in 1929, buried in 1964. To this day, we still don't quite know who Eugene was, where he came from, or what his story truly was. In our number 3 spot today, we have Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek State Park in Ohio is a popular destination for outdoor enthusiasts, but it is also the home to a very spooky urban legend. The park is said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who drowned in the creek many years ago. According to the legend, the woman's body was never found, and her ghost now wanders the park searching for her lost family. There are also reports of strange noises and ghostly apparitions in and around the park's historic buildings, such as the Gaston's Mill and the log cabins. Some visitors have reported feeling a sense of unease or being watched while exploring the park, particularly at night. Another one of the most well-known ghost stories associated with Beaver Creek State Park is the legend of the headless motorcyclist. According to the legend, a man lost his head in a motorcycle accident on the road that runs through the park. His ghost now rides his motorcycle through the park looking for his missing head. Some visitors claim to have seen the ghostly figure on his motorcycle, while others have reported hearing the sound of a motorcycle engine revving in the distance. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Coin Mansfield incident. What is a good old list of legends and spooky stories without a very real UFO incident, and perhaps one of the best known UFO sightings to take place in the state of Ohio. The Coin Mansfield helicopter incident occurred on October 18, 1973, when 4 members of the Ohio Army National Guard were flying in a helicopter over Mansfield, Ohio. Suddenly, they encountered a large metallic disc-shaped object that was hovering in the sky. The object began to move towards the helicopter, causing the crew to take evasive maneuvers. Despite their efforts, the object continued to follow them, eventually passing overhead and disappearing into the distance. The crew reported the incident to their superiors, and an investigation was launched by the military and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. The incident received significant media attention, and it remains one of the most compelling UFO sightings on record. What makes this incident particularly intriguing is the credibility of the witnesses. The crew were all experienced pilots with military training, and their account of the incident was corroborated by radar data and other witnesses on the ground. Despite extensive investigation investigations, no satisfactory explanation has ever been offered for what they saw that day. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Gore Orphanage. Gore Orphanage is an abandoned building located in Vermilion, Ohio, that has long been the subject of haunting tales and urban legends. According to legend, in the early 1900s, a fire broke out in the building, killing everyone inside. The ghosts of those lost to the fire are said to haunt the surrounding woods and the building, and visitors have reported hearing the sounds of children's laughter and cries. Some versions of the legend claim that the orphanage was actually a satanic cult site where humans were sacrificed in bizarre rituals. Others claim that the place was actually just a place where real, non-magic or demonic related horrors took place. Despite the lack of evidence to support these claims, the legend of Gore Orphanage persists and has inspired numerous ghost hunters and paranormal investigators to explore the abandoned building. However, it is important to note that the building is private property and trespassing is illegal, okay? So don't say I didn't warn ya.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the haunted Oprah Winfrey Show. What? The Oprah Winfrey Show is famously filmed in the Windy City near the spot of one of the worst boating disasters of all time. Now this resulted in the largest loss of life from an incident in the Great Lakes. In 1915, passengers were boarding the SS Eastland, which was docked in the Chicago River. Workers from Hawthorne Works were off to a picnic. It was a full boat, and this caused weight distribution issues, and then the boat listed to one side, rolling. This trapped some passengers below decks, others were crushed by heavy furniture. 844 passengers and 4 crew members died in the disaster. The dead were taken to a nearby armory building which served as an impromptu morgue. Fast forward decades and this building is now a warehouse and a film studio where the Oprah Winfrey Show is filmed. Many members of the show's crew have reported seeing and hearing strange things in the building. There have been reports of screams from the doomed passengers and even some apparition sightings. The most frequently spotted ghost is the Grey Lady, who is often seen stalking the halls. Coming in at number 9, there are 12,000 corpses underneath Lincoln Park. Parks, gotta love them. Green spaces, picnics, lemonade, a few cheeky beers, some banter, frisbee, fun times, and thousands of dead people. Wait, what? Yep, that's right. Rumor has it that Lincoln Park is built on an old cemetery, and surprisingly, this urban legend is true. Between 1843 and 1865, there were 4 different cemeteries in the spot where the public park now is. The city was eyeing up a spot for the park, and after the fire of 1871, they had the perfect excuse to start again. While some bodies were exhumed and moved, around 12,000 remained under the park. When the zoo was built in 1962, bodies were unearthed and reburied. With that many bodies, is there any surprise that there have been a number of ghost sightings in the area? Coming in at number 8, we have the legend of Mrs. O'Leary and the fire that killed 300 people. The Great Fire of Chicago is one of the most horrendous things that happened to the city. 3.3 square miles of city burnt from the 8th to the 10th of October 1871. This also left hundreds of thousands of people without homes. The popular legend blames Mrs. O'Leary, you know the song, Late Last Night. Before she went to bed, Mrs. O'Leary, she hung a lantern in her shed, and then the cow, he kicked it over and he winked at her and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight," right? You know the score, basically. We all know the score. I'm from England and I know the score. Now the problem is, poor old Mrs. Leary never actually did it. She was a poor Irish Catholic immigrant and was made a scapegoat because of Protestant founders of the US being distrustful of Catholics. Also, there was a lot of anti-Irish racism around the time. Reported by Michael Aaron of the Chicago Tribune, he actually was to blame for fanning the flames on Mrs. O'Leary's reputation. But it was already destroyed because people across the world are still singing songs about it today. She was pardoned by Chicago City Council in 1997, as was the cow, but of course it was far too late for them. Nonetheless, the legend lives on today. Continuing with the Great Fire of Chicago, we have the haunted water tower at number 7. In the fire, legend has it that one brave citizen pumped water from the iconic Chicago water tower to try and help quell the flames. The water tower on Streeterville survived the blaze as a result of the man's actions. He proved himself a hero as he manned the pumps instead of fleeing for his life. Then, as the metal structure got hotter and hotter, the flames rose around him. The man knew he was gonna die. Rather than die slowly and painfully, the legend has it that he hung himself from the structure. Legend also has it that sometimes people still see his body hanging through towers upstairs. This has been confirmed by a police officer who saw his body hanging through a window, but then when he went to investigate, there was no one there. Coming in at number 6, we have the Devil of Hull House. Is this the real-life story behind Rosemary's Baby? The story spawned the popular movie, and this could actually be the true-life explanation. The Hull House was a focal spot in the Chicago community. Jane Addams took the building over in the late 1800s and ran it as a woman's shelter. Jane reportedly took in a woman who was heavily pregnant and whose husband had abandoned her. It seems the midwives in Jane's employ would not go near the child after it was born. Why? Because it had a monstrous appearance. The legend states that the baby was born a monster because his father yelled to the heavens in frustration of being given only daughters. He reportedly yelled, "I would rather have the devil in this house than have another daughter." What a man. Jane kept that baby a secret, but one day, 3 Italian women burst into the house and demanded to see the devil baby. They said they knew a baby had been born with pointed ears, a tail, and cloven hooves. The woman caused such a fuss and would not leave until forcibly removed. Then, the locals started talking. Soon a crowd appeared at the house and people wanted to get a look at the child. The mystery was never resolved, but there have been many whispers of hauntings at the house. Some people report seeing the devil's face at the window of the house to this day. Coming into number 5, we have the legend of Homie the Clown. Homie the Clown is a classic Chicago urban legend and long predates the creepy clown sightings of 2016. In 1991, there were a slew of reports about a creepy clown cruising the streets trying to lure kids into a red and white blue van with "ha ha" written on the side. The clown was dressed as a TV character called Homie and was said to be offering up candy and money to children who would come with him. The police had a lot of reported sightings, mainly from children. They dismissed a report from 2 10-year-old boys in Oak Park, suggesting that the kids had banded together to troll the police. Nonetheless, this didn't quell the rumors, and a whole epidemic of sightings sprung up over the city. The clown, however, has never been caught. A lot of kids around the 90s in Chicago will remember Homie. Coming in at number 4, we have the machine guns of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre is no urban legend. It was a very real and gruesome morning of bloodshed in 1929 during the gang-riddled era of Chicago. 7 members of the North Side gang were lined up and shot with a machine gun against the Lincoln Park garage. This led to further bloodshed between the Irish North Siders and the Italian South Siders, famously led by Al Capone. While legendary, this is irrefutable truth. The urban legend slips in as people claim the Clark Street spot is still haunted by the massacred souls to this day. Civilians report hearing screams in the area. There have also been a lot of reports of animals being freaked out as they pass by the spot. Coming into number 3, we have the knocking ghosts of Flight 191. On the 25th of May 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 crashed moments after takeoff from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. 258 passengers and 13 crew were killed, as were 2 people on the ground. This insane death toll makes it the worst aviation accident in the United States history. Just as the jet was beginning its takeoff rotation, the left engine separated from the left wing and smashed into the runway, severing hydraulic fluid lines. As the plane began to climb, the damaged left side of the plane produced less lift and caused the plane to roll. This then made the plane crash into an open field by the airport, killing everyone on board. Now, the pictures from the aftermath are truly harrowing indeed. Debris was hurled into nearby trailer parks, which destroyed 5 trailers, but that wasn't all the trailer park would see of the crash. As the years went on, people living at the trailer park have reported frantic knocks at their door, only to open them and find that there's nobody there. One resident reported coming across a worried man who claimed he needed to make a connection. Another man in the area was walking his dog when he came across a man in a suit that smelled of gasoline. He told him that he needed to make an emergency call. Coming into number 2, we have the Italian Bride. Mount Carmel Cemetery is best known for being the final resting place of Al Capone and a number of his gangster cronies. Also resident in the cemetery is the much famed and deeply mysterious Italian Bride. The bride wasn't actually a bride at all. She was a young woman named Giulia Baccola. Unfortunately, she died aged 29 in childbirth in 1921. Now, she was reportedly buried in her wedding dress, which sparked her urban legend name. Following her death, her mother had a string of wild and vivid dreams that her daughter was not dead. Julia would tell her that she was alive and she needed her help. She had to come to the cemetery and save her. Finally, 6 years after her daughter's death, the dreams got too much for Julia's mother, who had her daughter's body exhumed. When the casket was opened, Julia's body had not decayed one bit since the day she was buried. Creepily, on her gravestone there's a picture of her body after she was exhumed, and yeah, she does look pretty freshly dead, which really sometimes is the best a gal can hope for. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most popular Chicago urban legends of all time. We have the story of Resurrection Mary. Ah, the vanishing hitchhiker. This urban legend is pinpointed to the southwest of Chicago in Justice, Illinois. Since the 1930s, around 30 men who have been driving along Archer Avenue between Resurrection Cemetery and Willowbrook Ballroom have reported being hailed over by a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman in a party dress. Further reports say that she is wearing dancing shoes, a shawl, and holding a small clutch bag. The men that have stopped for her and let her in their car said that she's softly spoken and shy. The woman asks to be dropped off at Resurrection Cemetery, and then she disappears in front of the gates. The legend says that this girl was in the ballroom with her boyfriend in the 1930s, but they got into an argument and she decided to walk home. Sadly, as she was walking up Archer Avenue, she was hit by a car that then sped away. Left for dead, she unfortunately died at the scene, but her spirit is still searching for a chivalrous man to drive her home. Other reports have involved drifters braking suddenly when they see a woman in white in the middle of the road.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Clown Graveyard. With a name like that, you probably think it's a metaphor for something, but the name is literal and the story is tragic. In Forest Park, Illinois lies Woodlawn Cemetery. Some of the graves there are marked by elephant statues. An engraving at the base of one large elephant is inscribed with the words Showman's League of America. All of the graves are marked with the same death date, June 22nd, 1918. On that fateful night, members of the Hagenbeck Wallace Circus were asleep in the rear cars of a train that was passing through the area. At 4 a.m. they stopped in the town of Hammond, Indiana to cool an overheated axle box. Little did they know that right behind them, a train driver had fallen asleep at the helm of his empty military train. He missed all the automatic signals and flares that warned him of the stalled train. He smashed right into the wooden circus cars. The survivors tried to scramble out, but soon the train lanterns had ignited the wreckage. It's thought that up to 110 circus employees were killed. They were buried in the mass graves. Many of the victims' names were not even known, so some of the markings have engravings like Baldy, 4-horse driver, or unidentified male. They say that their restless spirits still haunt the graveyard. Apparently they are also joined with the spirits of some of the circus elephants that died. Locals say that to this day the sound of phantom elephants can be heard at night, which I think is a lot creepier than humans. I don't know. Moving on to number 9 now, guys, we have the Thunderbirds. I wish this one was about the nice puppet show that I used to watch as a kid, but it's not. The Thunderbirds are creatures that many people have seen in Illinois, giant birds with wingspans of up to 20 feet. One famous local legend in the town of Alton is that of the Piasa bird, a name given by the Illinois Native Americans meaning bird that devours a man. Now that gives you guys a little clue as to why people fear them. Although the legend has existed for hundreds of years, things took a turn in the 1970s. In 1973, Ruth Lowe was cleaning up after her family had dinner in Lawndale, Illinois. The kids were playing outside when she heard a piercing scream and knew it was her son. When she ran outside, she saw 2 massive birds flying in formation and chasing her son, pecking and clawing at his shoulders. The larger one sunk its claws right into his shirt and lifted him off the ground. Ruth managed to fight them off and release her son, but only after they carried him a distance of over 35 feet. Locals believe that this was a modern day sighting of some Thunderbirds, mythical creatures who have been mentioned in Native American stories for hundreds of years and now seem to be scaring a lot of people in the area. Next, number 8 now, we have Bloods Point Road. Drive about an hour and a half northwest of Chicago and you can find Bloods Point Road. It's been the focus of a number of paranormal investigations over the years, and not just because of its creepy name. Locals say that as you drive along it, trees begin to look like humans standing guard. Now they say they stretch out in an effort to grab you. You might think that sounds creepy, but they say that the trees are just attempting to warn you of things to come if you choose to continue down that road. Others say that that the trees themselves are haunted, that ghosts congregate there. They say that if you're hidden, you can even watch the ghosts moving between the trees. All of this isn't helped by the fact that the road is home to the Bloods Point Cemetery. Legend says that actual hellhounds guard the cemetery gates. These evil dogs appear out of nowhere and attack visitors before instantly disappearing. On dark nights with a full moon, they've even been known to wander out of the cemetery and down Blood Point's road. Perhaps that's what the trees were warning against. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. For 2 weeks in 1934, the residents of Mattoon, Illinois were terrorized by a killer known only as the Mad Gasser. On August 31st, a man called Urban Rafe awoke to a strange smell in his bedroom that made him physically ill. He woke his wife up, who wondered if there might perhaps be a problem with the gas downstairs. When she tried to get up though, she found that she couldn't move her legs. The symptoms went away after a while though, and she found there was nothing wrong with the gas. Nearby, that exact same night, a woman went to check on her daughter, but found that she too was paralyzed from the waist down. The next night, a similar thing happened to another woman. The police began investigating, but found no clues. The local newspapers suggested that there was a madman out in the dark, creeping around and pumping this paralyzing gas into people's homes. He became known as the Mad Gasser. The panic in the town reached such levels that even the FBI got involved, but they too were unable to find a culprit. Reports have died down in the decades since, but some residents are on alert for a copycat Mad Gasser. Coming at number 6 now, we have the Enfield Horror. In April 1973, residents of Enfield, Illinois were all talking about a creature simply known as the Enfield Horror. On April 25th, a boy was attacked in his backyard by a creature with T-Rex-like arms, short claws, pink eyes, grey slimy skin and 3 legs. Later, the creature tried breaking into a neighbour's home where it was shot by a man named Henry McDaniel with a .22 caliber pistol. As the media picked up on the story, a news director for WWKI radio claimed to have actually taped the monster's screams as it ran off. He said he saw the creature cover 50 to 85 feet with just 3 leaps and then vanish out of sight. The police dismissed the reports and discouraged hunters from trying to find the creature. Others ignored the warnings and began investigating. Some parallels were found between the creature's description and some similar reports from the nearby town of Mount Vernon. Those reports came from the 1940s, leading some people to believe that this creature appears every 40 to 50 years, which I think means we are due for the return of the Enfield Horror right about now. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. In 1973, a young couple was parked by a desolate river in Murfreesboro, Illinois for a romantic night. Suddenly, a huge, wet, hairy beast just climbed out of the water. It was covered in mud. It let out a piercing roar which they would later say sounded like an eagle shrieking into a microphone. The couple fled without waiting to find out what it would do to them. For the next 2 weeks though, the whole town was in panic mode as more and more people had encounters with the huge albino beast which came to be known as the Big Muddy Monster. When police investigated, they found huge prints in the ground which seemed to match the size that others had described. When an officer leant down to inspect the print, he heard a horrifyingly shrill screech nearby. The police chief of the town said in an interview, "A lot of things in life are unexplained and this is another one. We don't know what the creature is, but we do believe what these people saw was real." Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Chesterfield Witch. Near the town of Arcola, in what is now known as Amish country, lies the small town of Chesterfield. Its cemetery is said to be home to a witch. Legend says that in life she stood up for the women who were being mistreated in the Amish community. In retaliation, they labelled her a witch and actually accused her of worshipping the devil. The community elders banished her. After that, nobody heard from her. She just disappeared completely. A while later, her body was found in a nearby field. They labelled her death as just down to natural causes and took her to a local funeral home. They put her body on display as a sort of attraction for locals to come and see a real witch. Eventually, after they had their fun, the woman was buried and a tree planted near her grave. In the years since, a deep superstition has grown around that tree. They say that it has bound her spirit to that grave. Legend says that if the tree ever dies, her spirit will be free to seek revenge upon the Amish community who banished her and displayed her body for entertainment. Some say that they've seen her spirit just standing over the grave, patiently waiting for the tree to die. Next up at number 3 now, we have the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On Valentine's Day 1929, 6 gang members in Chicago were lined up and shot by 4 unknown assailants. It's thought that famous mobster Al Capone ordered the killings in an attempt to control organized crime in the city. 2 of the killers opened fire with Tommy guns, spraying the victims left and right, and even continuing to fire after all 7 had hit the floor. They even went round with a shotgun and blew off 2 of the victims' faces. They were brutal murders that shocked the city, and for decades after, dark tourists could actually go and visit the site and see the bullet holes in the brick wall which the men were lined up along and shot. When the building was finally demolished in 1967, the bricks with the bullet holes in were sold to various people, and some people claim they were haunted. The various owners complained of bad luck from the day they first bought these bricks. It got so bad that some of them even returned the bricks to the original site, hoping to break the curse. Even today, some Chicago residents ascribe a negative energy when they walk past the parking lot where the building once stood. They hear gunshots and see floating orbs, a reminder of this bloody massacre from all those years ago. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Farmer City Monster. In the spring of 1970, 3 sheep were killed near the town of Farmer City, Illinois. Officials put it down to just wild dogs. Soon after, 4 teens parked up in a nearby area of the woods. They got the fright of their life when a huge, hairy humanoid with piercing yellow eyes approached the vehicle. Somehow, their flashlights were enough to scare this creature away, and the teens quickly fled the scene. The 2 boys of the group returned later though to investigate, and again they encountered the creature. This time they noticed the smell. It was nauseating and actually forced them to retreat. The police found an area of flattened foliage which they thought was the creature's nest. Over the next 2 weeks, a number of sightings occurred, including one by a police officer and another by some construction workers. They said the creature sprinted out of the woods and crossed the road in front of their van. When the sightings were looked at on a map, some people thought that it showed the creature was on the move, heading northwest. If this was true, perhaps it's moved on. Perhaps it's reached its destination because it hasn't been seen since in the area, but locals say they are ready for its return. And finally at number 1 now, we have Moon Point Cemetery. This is an old Civil War cemetery which has become an obsession of ghost hunters all over Illinois. It began as a family cemetery for a settler called Jacob Moon, but over the centuries it was eventually used by everyone. Of all the spirits said to haunt this place, one of them is perhaps the most famous, the Hatchet Lady. She's been seen carrying a hatchet while watching over her son's grave. She's also been known to shout at visitors to get out whenever they step too close to the area. Now on top of all that, the graveyard is also said to be home to the ghostly spirit of a young boy. Perhaps it's her son. There's even been sightings of multicolored orbs and light, and also the sound of coffin lids opening and closing in the dark. No thank you.
Alright, so starting off at our 10th spot, we have the Phantom Kangaroo. Okay, I know it doesn't sound too scary, like a cute little kangaroo. How could it be scary? Well, this one definitely is. So people have described this kangaroo as being 3.5 to 5.5 feet tall, with glowing eyes and supernatural powers. It is said that it can vanish into thin air and can brutally murder local animals. Now, people have claimed to see this phantom kangaroo all throughout Minnesota, but the most recorded sightings were in Coon Rapids. People have said that they have seen this creature rummaging through their trash or even killing pets. People who have seen it have called it a big bunny, but then they would get scared when it disappeared right in front of their eyes. Coming in at number 9, we have the Dogman. This is another creature that has been reported in different regions of Minnesota. So in 2009, a man encountered this cryptid. He was driving along a country road when he spotted some deer. He pulled over and was watching the deer when he spotted what he referred to as a Dogman. He said that this creature was 7 feet tall, 2-legged, and had big, long hands with opposable thumbs. He also said that this creature had a long snout with broad shoulders and muscular thighs. He was covered in dark brown fur. So maybe werewolves are real and this is a version of one. What do you think? Now, thankfully, this creature did not attack this man. They made eye contact, and as soon as they did, the man drove away. Smart thinking. In our 8th spot, we have Peppy the Lake Monster. Now, this lake monster is thought to be similar to Nessie the Loch Ness Monster. In fact, maybe they're related, who knows? Well, Peppy is a massive snake-like creature with a long neck who lives in Lake Pepin. There have been various sightings throughout the 18th and 1900s. People who have seen it have said that it looks like something between the size of an elephant and a rhino and has smooth gray skin. They also said that it can snatch a flying bird right out of the air. Now, Peppy has been considered harmless as there have been no reports of it causing any harm to citizens. In fact, some individuals have gone diving in hopes to see this creature. There is currently a $50,000 reward for anyone who can prove that Peppy is indeed real. So time to put those Photoshop skills to the test. Or maybe it is real and just he's gone into hiding or something. Moving on, at number 7 we have the hairy man of Virga's Trail. Maybe you should think twice before going on a nice little hike in Minnesota. So apparently there have been sightings of a giant hairy man type creature lurking this trail. This creature is supposed to be 8 feet tall with a musty odor. Honestly, I don't know who got close enough to smell this creature. I feel like if it approached me, smelling it would be the last thing on my mind. This creature is also supposed to be very aggressive. A man by the name of Kan Zitzao apparently encountered this creature while driving in the woods. He claimed that this creature jumped on his car and started smashing the hood. Apparently, there are also reports of brutal animal attackings from this creature. So, what do you think? You down to come hiking with me? In our 6th spot, we have the Nopeming Sanitarium. Seriously, the name of this place literally has nope in it. If that's not a hint to not go there, then I don't know what is. Now, when people hear the word sanitarium, they often associate it with an insane asylum. However, this was not the case. The Nopeming Sanitarium was a home for the ill and elderly. In 1912, it was home to thousands of patients with tuberculosis. Many of them died, and as a result, people claim that their spirits still roam the halls. Apparently, if you go there, then you can hear some of the spirits of people moaning in pain. Now, this legend also states that there is a 9-year-old girl that lurks around the sanitarium. People don't know who this girl is, but there have been reports of people hearing her giggle, or even of her appearing in photographs that they have taken of the empty hallways. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Bertha Maynard. Now, legend states that Bertha was accused of being a witch in the late 1800s. It is now said that she haunts her gravesite. People have reported seeing her apparition near her grave, or even hearing her whispers and cries. They even claim that her grave would move around or that her headstone would just disappear. Now, one individual reported his encounter with a ghost. He said that he was just chilling in his car with his lady friend by the grave. He states that out of nowhere, his radio went all staticky and the car's antenna started moving rapidly, despite there being no wind. He believes that Bertha was trying to communicate with him. The legend also describes an event involving some teen kids and Bertha's grave. Apparently, these kids vandalized her headstone, and shortly after, one of the kids' parents passed away unexpectedly. They believed that this was Bertha's revenge. Coming in at number 4, we had the ghost clown. Now, what's scarier than a clown? A ghost clown. So apparently this ghost clown can be seen along the trail of Lake Almagne. There you go, another reason why we just shouldn't go hiking. Legend has it that this clown just stands and stares at you as you walk the trail. Legend has it that he doesn't want you walking this trail, so he will stalk and stare at you until you leave. They also claim to have seen this clown's apparition appear and then disappear randomly, or have even seen weird shadowy figures darting in and out of the trees. But my question is, who is this ghost clown man? What happened in the forest, and why is the ghost dressed like a clown? Or maybe Pennywise has found a new hiding spot. Who knows? In our 3rd spot, we have Duluth's East Little Theater. This next urban legend is quite an interesting one. Now, apparently a drama director died in this theater after falling off the balcony. Before his death, he was in the midst of writing a play. However, because of this accident, he was never able to finish it. Now, legend has it that one day his script mysteriously appeared on an English teacher's desk. Attached to the script was a note written on an old stationery that read, "Please perform this." And then it was signed by him with the initials RC. Now, they never did end up performing this piece, for obvious reasons. I mean, that must have been terrifying. But drama students say that they hear weird noises in the theater and sometimes feel a cold presence. Coming in at number 2, we have the Wendigo. Now, apparently the Wendigo has been seen in forests of colder regions like Minnesota and Canada. Dang it, why does it have to be in Canada too? So, the Wendigo is a giant creature that can be up to 15 feet tall. They are skinny and often have antlers coming out of their head. Now, there have been several reports of this creature being seen in forests all throughout Minnesota. People believe that this creature evolved from a lost hunter. They claim that his hunger and the extreme cold weather drove him to cannibalism. Wendigos are then said to hunt down and eat humans. Wendigos look terrifying. Like, imagine being a hunter and seeing the antlers from behind a tree and hoping you're gonna catch a deer, and then next thing you know, it's this gigantic creature hunting you. Spooky. no thank you. And in our number 1 spot, we have the UFO attacks. So there are UFO sightings in every city basically. Anything in the sky that looks a bit odd is automatically claimed as a UFO, and people believe it too. Even if it was reported by old Mr. Jenkins who wasn't even wearing his glasses. So in August of 1979, a deputy by the name of Val Johnson suffered an attack from what he claims was a UFO. So this deputy was in the Marshall County when he saw a strange light on the road ahead of him. He drove towards the light when all of a sudden it completely filled his car and blinded him. Half an hour later, he woke up in a ditch. He had welder burns on his eyes, and the time on his wristwatch and dashboard clock was off. His car had a smashed headlight and his antenna was bent. Police have no explanation as to what happened, and since then, this has become a well-known urban legend. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. Do you believe in aliens?
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Gore Orphanage. Legend says that in 1903, Mr. and Mrs. Sprunger founded Gore Orphanage in Vermillion, Ohio. Soon, there were over 100 boys and girls living there. Then, rumors of the orphans' mistreatment began. They say that Mrs. Sprunger would cook cows' heads and lungs and force the children to eat them or starve. Mr. Sprunger would also beat the kids with a leather strap until their bodies were covered in welts and bruises. He would also rent out the children to local farmers as slave labor. The children were only allowed to wash themselves once every 2 weeks and all had to use the same exact dirty bathwater. Their rooms were infested with rats that bit them as they slept. Eventually, the children tried to escape. Sometimes alone or sometimes in groups, they braved the dark and tried to cross the river at night, hoping to find people to look after them in the nearby town. On one cold night in December 1923, Gore Orphanage caught fire. Now to this day, nobody knows how it started. Some say a child knocked over an oil lamp. Others say Mr. Sprunger started the fire because he hated the children and wanted to collect the insurance money. The building burnt to the ground with the children trapped inside. Locals couldn't get close to the inferno to save them and had to listen to their screams as the orphanage was reduced to a charred husk. Over 100 children died that night. Legend says that you can still see their ghosts lurking in the field where the orphanage once stood. Late at night, you can hear the sounds of screaming and pleading for help. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Athens Insane Asylum. Now this building opened its doors in 1874, becoming one of Ohio's largest asylums for the mentally ill. In the beginning, things went well. It offered some of the best care to its patients. As the years went on, the owners realized that they could put some of the patients to work there, specifically on the nearby farm. The greedier they got, the more patients they took on. By the 1950s, it had become a dumping ground for anyone that a family couldn't afford or simply didn't want to look after. At 2,000 patients, it was now 3 times over its capacity, yet the number of staff remained unchanged. Patients were forcibly restrained for days at a time, left in crowded rooms meant for one person, and regularly beaten by staff. In 1993, the hospital finally closed its doors. The remaining buildings were left to Ohio University. In the years after, students would tell tales of strange figures standing in the empty wings in the former hospital. For me though, the creepy part is the report of a stain on the top floor of the building. They say it's of Margaret Skeeling, a patient who went missing in 1979. She was found 42 days later in an abandoned ward. Tests show that she died of heart failure, yet she was found naked next to her clothes folded neatly on the floor. To the horror of those who found her, the body had decomposed so badly that a stain had seeped into the actual concrete. It couldn't be scrubbed away, and they say to this day the stain can still be seen. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Melonheads. These humanoid creatures are said to be found in Lake County, Ohio. Now according to legend, the government ran a number of secret experiments on local children there. A man called Dr. Crow performed the experiments on children in an orphanage. The government hoped that they wouldn't cause as much of a stir that way because nobody would care about the children. Not my words, theirs. Or potentially theirs. The results of the experiment were shocking. The children's hair began to fall out and their bodies mutated, increasing their head to a gigantic size as a result of injecting them with excess fluid. The children feared for their lives. They grouped together and overthrew the twisted doctor, murdering him one night in the orphanage. Then they set fire to the building and fled to the woods to become feral. In the years since, locals have reported seeing fully grown adults with huge heads darting through the trees. While this is already creepy by itself, they also say that these so-called Melonheads are now cannibals, feeding on any person that wanders too close to the woods. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Reformatory. This is an old prison built in 1896 and designed designed by Levi T. Schofield. He wanted the place to inspire the inmates to experience a spiritual renewal and give up their harmful lifestyle, repent their wrongdoing. In the end though, it gained a reputation for death, after more than 200 people died there over the years. These days, people say that the building is haunted by the spirits of the dead. One such person is Helen Glatke, the wife of the prison's one-time warden. She was accidentally shot in the lung when a gun fell off a shelf. Now legend says though that she actually killed herself, and the whole accident story was nothing more than a cover-up. Then there's the rumours of a prisoner setting himself on fire in his cell, an old woman roaming the grounds, and also the hole. The hole was said to be a confinement space in the basement of the prison, designed for 20 people at most. However, guards would cram it full of prisoners just to torture them. The pain and anguish suffered within the walls are said to still remain and be heard on cold, dark nights. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Franklin Castle. This Victorian era building is said to be the most haunted house in Ohio, bar none. It's a bold claim, but the story seems to back it up. It was built in the 1880s by a grocer turned banker called Hans Tiedemann. Despite being rich, his life was struck by a number of tragedies. In that house, his 15-year-old daughter died, so too did his mother and 3 other children who died in infancy. His wife became so overcome with grief that she became despondent. He attempted to distract her by turning the house into a sort of castle. He built elaborate tunnels, prominent gargoyles, and a sprawling network of rooms. He stopped though when his wife also passed away. He sold the property. It changed hands a number of times over the decades, and then in the 1960s, reports of hauntings in the house began to spread. There were strange electrical surges, the sound of babies crying, and a mysterious woman in black who roamed the hallways at night. In 1975, human bones were said to be found in a closet in the house. Now since then, there have been reports of an axe murderer there, a mass shooting of Nazis in the basement, and even the hanging of one of the original daughters of the family. People may dispute some of the stories, but some people who visit agree that a lasting presence can definitely be felt at old Franklin Castle. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Loveland Frogmen. This is a really weird one, guys, and I'm saying this as a guy who has done more urban legends videos than he's had hot dinners. Residents of the town of Loveland have been reporting since 1955 that amphibious men live along the river there. The first sighting occurred when a businessman claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal quasi-reptilian entities congregating by the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the curb and watched the creatures for about 3 minutes. He described them as being 3 to 4 feet tall, covered with leathery skin and having webbed hands and feet. While they had some human-like features, he said that they had distinctly frog-like heads. Just before the creatures left, one of them seemed to wave what the witness described as a wand above its head, like an actual magical wand. Sparks apparently came out of it. The man left, but over the years many have reported similar experiences, leaving many locals to see the Frogman as just a strange part of reality. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Grassman. You can think of this one as Ohio's version of Bigfoot. It's said to have all the same characteristics, a tall bipedal hominid that skulks around Ohio's deep woods. The Grassman gets its name from apparently building small hut-like structures or nests made out of tall grass. The first sighting occurred in 1978 when some local kids ran into their grandparents' home screaming about a hairy monster they had just seen in the gravel pit outside. When the grandparents went outside to investigate, they saw it too. They said it was covered in dark matted hair, sitting in the pit and fiddling with some trash. They later estimated it to be about 300 pounds. The family fled, but it wasn't the last time that they or many other locals saw them. When people started investigating, they found records from the 1700s of Native Americans in the area who spoke of a race of bipedal ape men. They referred to them as the wild ones of the woods and would often leave food out for them in an effort to keep the peace. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Cincinnati Music Hall. This is a classical music performance hall in Cincinnati, completed in 1878. Before construction was even finished, it was said the location was a place where the dead render the lives of the living a burden to them. How intense does that sound? When a nearby canal was being made, authorities found over 100 human skeletons that had to be removed. They buried them in the ground on which this building now stands on. More remains were placed there in 1838 when a steamboat exploded and flung bodies all over the city. They were also buried in the ground below the music hall. If that wasn't enough to creep you out, it also stands atop of an old orphan asylum and an old Civil War hospital. All of this has resulted in locals claiming claiming it's the most haunted place in town. One night watchman felt the presence of ghosts there. He said, "They never touch me, but I always know when they are around, by an icy chill, a thrill of electricity. They never annoy me now by mere knocking, for I have gotten so used to it. So used to it that sometimes when people have really knocked at the door, I didn't open, because I thought it was only the dead that kept knocking, knocking, knocking." Well, I'm glad he can be so calm with dead people knocking at the door at night. Most of us would just nope right out of there. I know I definitely would. Moving on to number 2 now, guys, we have Lake Hope Furnace. During the Industrial Revolution, this furnace was used to process iron ore gathered from the area's sandstone bedrock. After 20 years, the furnace is shut down, but some say creepy stories still remain. They say that in order to ensure the furnace continued operating at night, watchmen were employed to tend to the furnace fires. On one fateful night, a watchman was walking along the platform with his lantern when he slipped in the darkness and fell into the bubbling ore inside the furnace. He screamed out for help, but was consumed in seconds. Now, legend says that on stormy nights, a ghostly watchman returns to make his rounds. There have been dozens of reports of a dark figure carrying a lantern walking along the top of Lake Hope Furnace. Some even say the figure continues pacing back and forth across the furnace until lightning strikes nearby, causing him to disappear until the next stormy night. And finally now, at the number 1 spot, we have the Wickerham Inn. In the 1790s, a man called Peter Wickerham moved to Adams County, Ohio and opened an inn. It was very popular and saw many coach drivers and locals stopping there to drink, eat and converse. One night though, a driver was bragging to the whole inn about how much money he was carrying. Some men in the corner of the room hatched a plan. As he headed to bed, they jumped him, brutally murdering him on the spot. When he didn't appear for checkout the next morning, an employee was sent to check on him. They returned a moment later, pale as a sheet and visibly shaken. When the others entered the room, they saw a horrible sight. The room was covered in blood, absolutely everywhere. On the floor, the blood had seeped into the floorboards, creating the bloody outline of a headless body. But, perhaps even more shockingly, there was no head. Peter Wickerham feared this would be the end of his business. He ordered everything in the room to be taken out and burnt. He also told them to scrub the floor and remove that bloody outline, but no matter how hard they tried, the outline would not fade. Around that same time, people reported seeing the ghostly outline of a headless man peering out of the upstairs window. A long time passed, and in the 1920s, the inn was renovated. In the basement, the stone floor was removed to install a new heating system. As they pulled up the old flooring, they recoiled in horror at the sight of a complete human skeleton, complete except for the skull.
At number 10, we have the green clawed beast. Imagine you're out enjoying your afternoon, lounging on an inner tube, floating in the river, when all of a sudden you are attacked by a creature. Because that is exactly what happened to a woman named Naomi Johnson. On August 21st of 1955, Miss Johnson was out enjoying a swim with her friend in Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. While swimming, Miss Johnson said that she was suddenly grabbed and pulled underwater by a large, hairy claw hand. She struggled underwater until she was able to kick herself free. She resurfaced only to shortly be pulled under again by this creature. Thankfully, Miss Johnson managed to escape once again. When she reached land, she had multiple bruises and wounds on her leg, one of which was a green claw print shaped hand. Now, Miss Johnson never got a good look at the creature, but could sense how big and strong it was from the force it used on her. This encounter was reported to an Air Force colonel who took detailed notes and then told Miss Johnson and her friend to never mention it again. Very suspicious. What is this man hiding? Was it a creature of his own that escaped? No one knows. But what they do know is to never swim in that river again. Moving on to number 9, we have the Cry Baby Bridge. Now, there are tons of haunted bridges in Ohio. We previously talked about the Bloody Bridge and the Brubaker Bridge, but there are so many more, including the Cry Baby Bridge. The Cry Baby Bridge is located in Fremont, Ohio, and is supposedly haunted by a ghost of a baby and a mother who passed away. According to legend, in 1883, a woman by the name of Lizzie Schatt threw her baby over the bridge after giving birth to it out of wedlock. She was ashamed of her sin and didn't want to keep her baby as a reminder. To this day, you can hear the child crying in the middle of the night, and can even sometimes see Lizzie wandering the bridge looking for her child out of guilt. In our 8th spot, we have Walhalla Road. Located in North Columbus, this road is supposedly one of the scariest roads in Ohio. Legend has it that around 1950, a doctor by the name of Mooney and his wife and kids used to live among the road. It is said that one night Mr. Mooney lost his mind and murdered his family along this road. Apparently, if you walk this road in the dead of night, then you will see the ghost of Dr. Mooney murdering his family. You will also be able to hear them screaming and hollering. Like, the name of the road is literally Walhalla, like Halla, like get it? Just a weird coincidence. Also, if you walk this road at night, it is said that you can see an eerie blue light appearing from the attic of the Mooney's old mansion. Coming in at number 7, we have Loveland Castle. Although it may sound like a nice place to go for a honeymoon, don't be fooled. It's not. Well, maybe if you guys have a thing for ghosts. Not judging. Now, this castle was actually handmade by a man named Harry Andrews back in 1929. Harry was obsessed with medieval times and architecture and decided to build this towering castle in the middle of the Midwest. Andrew passed away in April of 1981 at the age of 91. Loveland Castle is now a museum spot for tourists to visit. It is said that people have seen a shadowy figure roam the halls that resembles Harry. Typically, this ghost makes an appearance when something in the castle is going to go wrong. This may be Harry's way of still looking after the castle after passing away. In fact, one time, sounds of slamming doors could be heard upstairs. Upon investigation, they noticed that the septic tank was about to overflow. They believe that the slamming doors was Harry's way to warn them about this. And lastly, there's also said to be another spirit roaming the castle. This spirit is referred to as the Viking entity. Now, people believe that this entity is attached to one of Harry's antique swords in the castle. This Viking can be seen in a long black cloak, carrying a sword at his chest. Moving on to number 6, we have Riders Inn. Now, if you ever need a place to stay in Ohio, don't worry, I got you covered with a list of haunted inns not to stay at. Now, on this list is a bed and breakfast known as Riders Inn. In this inn, you can enjoy their restaurant, comfy accommodations, and of course, 3 ghosts. The first ghost that people have claimed to see is of a man dressed in a Civil War uniform. Now, both the other 2 ghosts are Roxanne and Susanna, the second and third wives of the inn's founder, Joseph Ryder. Apparently, Roxanne is a friendly ghost, whereas Susanna causes trouble around the inn. Inn residents have stated that they have been let into the inn by a woman in a white nightgown when the doors should have been locked. This was either the ghost of Roxanne or Susanna. Now, may I mention that this inn is literally located on a street named Painesville? Like, what are the odds? We are now at our halfway mark with number 5. The Witch's Ball. What's a scary legend without some witches? Myrtle Hill Cemetery in Medina County is known for getting quite the group of interested people. Among all the graves, there's one in particular that stands out, and that's because it's marked with a giant sphere. This story revolves around a woman that endured a lot of suffering throughout her life. As a result, she ended up murdering her family members. She would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids and their dog. Just kidding. But I love Scooby-Doo. Classic. But seriously, she would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the town members who realized that her family just started to disappear. They believed that she was a witch and she was practicing her magic in the woods. As a result, she was stoned to death and buried under the giant sphere. Now, apparently she was buried standing up to make it hard for her to escape, and the spear was put on top as another precaution to make sure she never arose. However, it is said that her spirit has found a way to escape. In the wintertime, snow will not fall on the spear or the ground around it. On top of that, if you touch the spear, it will appear warm from the witch's energy, and in the summer, it will appear cold. People have also claimed that they have seen her figure in the woods by the cemetery or even seen an eye on the ball itself. Coming in at number 4, we have the Akron Civic Theater. Built in 1929 by Marcus Lowe, the Akron Civic Theater is a nice place to watch theatrical performances and even see ghosts. Although this theater is beautiful, it has a much darker past. Now, there is said to be 3 ghosts that haunt this theater. The first ghost is of a janitor named Fred. Fred apparently was the janitor for the theater and passed away one evening on his shift. Fred's ghost has been seen throughout the theater, and in fact, one person reported seeing him standing just outside the main entrance. It is also said that Fred becomes angry for anyone that dirties up the bathroom and will chase or attack them. No thanks. I'd rather hold it in if that's the case. The second ghost is of a man who is said to be a frequent theater goer or even of an actor that used to work there. He is said to lurk on the balcony and is fashionably dressed. And the last ghost is of a woman who died after jumping into the canal, which is below the theater. Her spirit is still said to roam the theater and is often heard crying. Let's move on to number 3 with the headless ghost. In October of 1889, a train conductor by the name of John Walsh was bringing the train along the Nickel Plate Railroad in Arcadia. While waiting for the signal that would allow him to continue traveling, he noticed that a section of the train cars had disconnected. While trying to reconnect them, the other missing section came barreling towards him, smashing his head between the two cars. In January of 1890, it is said that an engineer has seen John's ghost. Apparently, at night you can see John's headless ghost roaming the tracks looking for his, well, lost head. It is also said that he carries a lantern which he swings back and forth, and people have seen the eerie glow of his lantern at night. In our second spot, we have Helltown. What a nice sounding town to visit in Ohio. Helltown is located in an abandoned town of Newville in Ohio. Now, Helltown wasn't always the name given to this area. It was once known as Boston Mills, but it was bought out by the government, who forced the residents to leave the town. Legend states that the government closed down Boston Mills after a chemical accident that occurred there. As a result of this accident, citizens began to mutate. Some people have claimed to see these disfigured, mutated residents still lurking in the area. It is also said that murdered children roam the woods of Helltown. Apparently, while headed to school, a school bus filled with students ran out of gas. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere when they were killed by a patient from a mental asylum. It is said that the ghosts of these children still roam the woods and can be seen at night, along with hearing their screams. And in our number 1 spot, we have the West Branch Witch. Another witch-related legend. Surprise, surprise. In the West Branch State Park of Portage County, there have been many claims of people encountering a woman dressed in all black. The first appearance was reported in 1960 by a man named B.A. Evans. He recently purchased a piece of land and later discovered a small cemetery on it. This cemetery contains 7 gravestones surrounded by a 40-inch wall. The gravestones are apparently from a family named the Elliots. The headstone that gets the most attention is that of Clemenza. Clemenza was apparently killed by a group of townspeople after being accused of being a witch. As a result, she was pressed. Basically, a wooden board was placed on her, and then on top was piled with stones until her body was crushed by the weight. To this day, her grave is marked by a pile of stones that rests on top of it. It is said that she haunts the graveyard and the surrounding area. In fact, on her tombstone is a curse that says, "Remember youth as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so must you be. Prepare for death and follow me." If you read it out loud by her grave, she will apparently chase you away. Now, this legend continues, saying that one night a group of kids took stones from Clemenza's grave. Later on, they died on their way home in a car accident, but the one kid that didn't take the stone survived. So any geologists out there, I recommend not taking any rocks from this site. Starting off with number 10, the Bloody Headstone. Riverside Cemetery in Appleton, Wisconsin has been a popular attraction site for those who seek a paranormal thrill, or for those who just wish to get haunted. Among the numerous graves in this cemetery, there is one in particular that gets ongoing attention. Kate Blood. Given the nickname Kitty Blood, she was a supposed child killer, witch, and adulteress. Now her ghost is said to roam the cemetery at night and haunt her gravesite. When people visit her secluded grave, they claim to have been pushed or touched by her ghost, and some have even seen her apparition. They also claim that the area around her grave is unusually warm, and that's from her presence lurking around. What is most unsettling is that on the night of a full moon, apparently blood can be seen seeping through her headstone. Honestly, I just feel sorry for the groundskeeper that has to continuously clean up that mess. That's terrible. Alright, making our way to number 9, the Jogging Woman on Vine Street. So, I don't know what's scarier, thinking about going for a run or encountering a ghost that likes to run. Vine Street in Eau Claire is a nice, quiet, peaceful, haunted neighborhood. It is said that the ghost of a woman who was hit and killed by a drunk driver while jogging haunts this street. Her shadowy figure can be seen darting in front of cars, only to disappear right after. You know what? Running already haunts me as it is, so I can't imagine witnessing this as well. At number 8, we have dissected corpses. You know, I have never really been a fan of science or anatomy, but this next legend has me intrigued. The University of Wisconsin is presently known for their advanced research studies. However, there have been stories since the 80s of unethical studies that took place in the basement of the school. It is said that they would grave rob these bodies to dissect and conduct experiments on. The basement is now believed to be haunted by the spirits whose bodies were tampered with. Presently, the school does use cadavers to learn about the human body, however, they do it with respect, and it's only bodies that have been donated to the program. Moving on down to number 7, the Hitchhiker of Highway 12. First off, let me say that if you're one of those people that stop and pick up hitchhikers, what are you doing? You don't know their agenda. They could be a killer, or in this case, a ghost. Apparently along the road of Highway 12, people have claimed to see a scruffy man with a dark beard, long greasy black hair who is dressed in blue jeans and an army jacket. Those who see this man drive past him thinking nothing of it, only shocked when miles down the road they encounter the same guy. Those who are brave enough to stop and offer this man a ride find that he disappears without a trace when they approach him. No one knows why this ghostly man is here or why he is haunting the roadside. Next at number 6 we have the Bloody Bride Bridge. I think a lot of people's worst fear on their wedding day is having either their bride or groom get cold feet and not show up. Well, the Bloody Bride Bridge refers to the legend of a bride who got killed on the bridge while on her way to the wedding. It is now said that you can see this bride in her white dress lurking on the bridge at night. In fact, a police officer has witnessed this firsthand when he spotted her laying down on the bridge. He went to go call for an ambulance, but when he went back to her, she had mysteriously disappeared. It is also said that if you park your car near the bridge around midnight, the bride will appear in the backseat of your car. So, word from the wise, if you and your lover decide to get it on in your car, don't park near this bridge unless you want her in the backseat. We are now at our halfway point with number 5. Hogsback Road, Goatman. Here is another road I suggest you add to your list of places not to visit, and there's a good reason for it. Hogsback Road is said to be home of a strange monster that is half man and half goat. His upper body is that of a man with horns and sharp fingernails, while the lower half of his body is of a goat with reddish fur. It is said that this creature hunts for lost travelers to torment or kill. Apparently this creature was once a man who was killed along this road and is now a restless spirit. In fact, a woman named Mindy Rosette believes that her and her daughter had encountered Goatman. They were driving by this area when the creature ran in front of her car. This is how she described the creature. His legs seemed to be bent back, the knees like a dog's. His muscles were really defined, thighs especially. I couldn't make out the hands because of the way it was running. I couldn't see the feet as I couldn't see past the car hood. Instantly, I knew this was something incredible. In our number 4 spot, we have Boy Scouts Lane. Now, as the name suggests, Boy Scouts Lane may sound like the spot to go where Boy Scouts go to learn to tie knots, roast marshmallows, and do other things that Boy Scout related activities, I don't know. However, as you may have guessed, this is not the case. Boy Scouts Lane is an unpaved, secluded small trail that is said to be the place where a troop of Boy Scouts were murdered by their scout master. Other versions of the story state that it was the bus driver that murdered them all, or even that they just died in a bus crash. No matter what version of the story you may hear, it all centers around the theme of a group of Boy Scouts' tragic death. It is said that if you roam this path, you may feel as if you are being watched. Witnesses have said that they have seen the apparition of the scout master, and that child-sized handprints have appeared on their car. Honestly, if I'm gonna go encounter these ghosts, they can at least offer me some Boy Scout cookies, especially those Thin Mints. Those are my secret addiction, okay? Bringing it down to number 3, we have the Ridgeway Ghost. Here we go with another haunted road in Wisconsin. Are you shocked? I'm not. Along Route 151, there seems to be 2 shape-shifting spirits that haunt the area. This legend dates back to the 1840s and is said that a bar fight between 2 teen brothers and other men resulted in their tragic death. One of the brothers were torched and burned alive, while the other boy froze to death trying to escape these men. It is said that these ghosts have been seen as a headless horseman, a ball of fire, a man with a whip, or even as a big beast. Other people believe that these ghosts can shapeshift into animals such as pigs and dogs. This ghost could definitely play tricks on people. Like, imagine you're gonna go pet a cute dog and all of a sudden it turns into the headless horseman. Yeah. No thanks. Coming in second, we have the Rhinelander Hodag. Now, if you visit the town of Rhinelander, you are bound to encounter the Hodag creature, but not in the way you think. This town has numerous statues and paintings of the hodag all throughout the town. The hodag is a 265-pound creature with a frog's head, a dinosaur-looking body, short legs, and a long tail. The creature also has 2 large sharp fangs hanging out of its mouth and reddish glowing eyes. It is said that this creature is aware of its ugliness and spends a lot of time crying over it. I'm feeling slightly targeted here. Legend has it that one of these creatures were caught in the 1890s, however there are still more out there. It is also said that there are only 3 ways to kill it: chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. So if you ever plan to visit Rhinelander, make sure you bring the essentials: toothbrush, toothpaste, chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. I'm sure airport security will understand. And lastly, in our top spot, we have the Maribel Hotel. The Maribel Hotel was once a nice spa for travelers to enjoy, but is now known as Hotel Hell. Legend has it that one night a hotel guest ended up murdering all of the other guests in their sleep. From then on, the hotel has become haunted. The freakiest part about this hotel is that it has burned down 3 different times, but on the exact same day. When that happened, the guests perished in their sleep. It is said that the remains of some of these bodies can be found on the 3rd floor. However, it is now inaccessible from structure failure in the stairs. Still to this day, it is said that you can hear screaming from the basement. Well, now I know where to not stay if I make a trip to Wisconsin.
And we're kicking off this list with Satan's Hollow. In the Blue Ash area of Cincinnati lies a drainage tunnel, but not just any drainage tunnel. This one is said to be a portal to the underworld. The tunnel is massive. It's actually a large network of interconnected tunnels. Explorers have documented all the strange satanic graffiti in there, so of course there is a legend that the tunnel was once used for satanic rituals, and because of these repeated dark ceremonies, a portal to hell itself was accidentally opened. It's covered in pentagrams, messages like hell lies ahead are in there. Now the tunnel is on private property, so for anyone in Ohio or thinking of visiting there, none of you heard any of this from me. Plus, exploring dark prohibited tunnels in the middle of the night, pretty risky even aside from meeting a horned demon goat monster. Number 9, Munchkinland. Once again in Cincinnati, there is a legend of a place called Munchkinland, aka Tiny Town, located near Rumpke landfill. There was an area featuring a collection of small houses and buildings where small people were said to live, hurling rocks at passing cars in order to ward them off. There are stories about the unfortunate folks who stopped their car in the area only to be met with angry little folk rushing out of their tiny homes, rocks in hand. As to where these small people are said to come from, some say they were all retired circus performers, others say they're simply mythical creatures. Now, you can check the area out for yourself, but unfortunately most of these structures have been torn down now, so if there really was a town full of angry munchkins living there, I guess they scattered and built a new township, maybe deeper in the woods, possibly? And at number 8, we have the Ghost of Amy. If you decide to check out Munchkinland, you might as well make your way to this area too, because they're in very close proximity. Just outside of Cincinnati lies Lick Road, a road that is said to be home to a ghost. Amy was said to have died at the hands of her boyfriend, either at the cul-de-sac at the end of the road or by the bridge nearby. There are said to be a number of ways to experience the Ghost of Amy. One legend goes that if you flick your headlights onto the sign as you're turning onto Lick Road, you can see Amy briefly flash onto it. Another goes that if you park your car and face the woods, then flash your headlights 3 times, your windows will start to fog up and the word help will appear in the windshield. And of course, there's just the ghostly phenomena that's said to go on there. Some have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a young woman dressed in a white gown standing at the edge of the forest. And if you decide to get out of your car and walk across the nearby bridge, you may just hear footsteps following you into the woods. Next up we have the Waxman. Once again, another Cincinnati urban legend. Lots going on there. A tunnel to hell, munchkins who throw rocks. There's a hook-handed man I may discuss later in the list, and a mysterious man with a waxy face. So the legend goes that this man leaves his home at the same time every night at 11:30 and drives his gold car to the junkyard. He's often described as an elderly man with a face that appears to be made out of wax. Now, I don't know if that means his face is just kind of shiny or if it looks like his face is melting. If you've ever seen him, please let me know in the comments. People have reported trying to follow him, but he's very good at evading people, timing his trip perfectly so that he never hits a red light. And as to what he does in this junkyard, nobody is completely certain. Some say that he's a ghost who died in the junkyard, forever doomed to repeat the final moments leading up to his death. Number 6, the Gazebo in Eden Park. The Springhouse Gazebo is said to be one of the most haunted places in Ohio. The story goes that in 1925, a Cincinnati attorney by the name of George Remus was sent to prison for bootlegging. And during his 2-year sentence, his wife, Imogen Remus, started an affair. She and her lover took everything from him, and when he came out of prison, she told him she was filing for a divorce. On her way to the courthouse, though, Remus drove her off the road by the nearby gazebo before getting out of his car and fatally shooting her. Imogen is said to haunt the gazebo until this day, described as a ghostly figure wearing a black silk dress. Unlike with most ghosts, though, she's apparently often seen in the early hours of the morning before the sun has fully risen. Next on the list is Buffalo Ridge. Located in Cleves, Ohio, this place is home to a number of ghostly tales. There's supposedly an abandoned crematorium where satanic rituals took place. There's said to be a demon dog stalking the forest, a headless ghost who roams the land in search of her head. There's also a bottomless lake where unfortunate victims were dumped, their spirits trapped within the murky water. There's a tale of a group of teenagers in the 50s who crashed on Buffalo Ridge Road, and now there's said to be a ghostly car that attempts to run people off the road too. The most famous legend surrounding Buffalo Ridge tells of a young man who was hit by a speeding drunk driver. The boy left a blood stain on the road, a stain that never seems to go away. And if you do find the stain, decide to stop and inspect it, stay alert, because the van of the hit and run driver from all those years ago might appear and try to run you over too. So that's 2 ghost cars, a headless ghost, a demon dog, a creepy lake, a haunted crematorium, all in just one specific place. Keep saying this, but I gotta go to Ohio. Next up, we have the legend of the Melonheads. According to this story, a group of deformed and feral individuals known as the Melonheads reside in forests around Kirtland. These figures are said to have large heads resembling melons and just kind of creep people out. According to the legend, they were once children who suffered from physical and mental abnormalities due to cruel experimentation by a sinister mad scientist. Escaping captivity, though, they are believed to have retreated into the woods, surviving by hunting and remaining hidden from outside society. Some versions claim they attack intruders who venture into their territory, while others portray them as more reclusive and mysterious, doing their own thing, appearing only in glimpses before quickly retreating into the forest. At number 3, we have Dead Man's Curve in Cleveland. Now, this is a section of road that has claimed the lives of a number of drivers. One story goes that in 1969, a car full of teenagers smashed into a speeding 1969 Roadrunner. There was only one survivor. At the intersection of State Routes 125 and 222, where this accident took place, some have reported seeing a faceless hitchhiker standing by the side of the road between 1:20 and 1:40 a.m. Sometimes he's even seen standing right in the middle of the road, leading drivers to nearly crash trying to avoid him. And those who don't move out of the way in time report phasing right through him, at which point he'll start chasing the car down the road before eventually vanishing into thin air. Some also claim to have seen either an Impala, the type of car that teenagers have been driving, or a Roadrunner driving along the road with no one in the front seat. It's said to be one of the most haunted places in Claremont County, but if you decide to pay it a visit, just keep your eyes on the road. Number 2, the Hook Man. In the village of New Richmond, there is said to be a terrifying specter, that of a ghostly figure with a hook for a hand. The man with a hand for a hook is pretty much the staple of urban legends. There are many different versions of hook-handed ghost stories, but Ohio's goes a little something like this. On Pond Run Road lived a doctor and his wife. They had a son who was mentally disturbed, and being the despicable pricks that they were, their son was kept chained up in the basement most of the time. One night, there was a terrible storm and lightning struck their home, setting it ablaze. When authorities arrived on the scene, they found the parents burnt to death, but there were no remains of the boy, other than his severed hand chained up to the wall in the basement. As the years went on, the boy grew up and stalking the wooded area, stealing from homes nearby. Stories of couples being found stabbed to death in the area led some to believe they died at the hands of the Hookman, and these stories continued, developing into the types of hook hand urban legends we often think of. A couple making out in their car, they hear a strange noise, the guy makes the smart decision to get out of the car and check things out rather than just drive away, and pays for it by taking a hook to the cranium. And finally, we have the Spring Grove Cemetery in Cincinnati. Once again, Cincinnati. This is the second largest cemetery in the USA, and cemeteries are pretty much always haunted. Plus, this is Ohio, so no surprises here that there's some spooky stuff going on. There are many tragic ghostly tales associated with this cemetery, but probably the most famous is that of an optometrist by the name of C.C. Brewer. Before he died, he asked that his eyes be removed and placed in the bronze bust on his gravestone. Now, the eyes aren't actually real, obviously, they're just made of glass, but they do stand out from the rest of the bust. Many visitors of the grave claim to watch the eyes follow them as they move. Another story goes that a caretaker was working alone one night when he felt something firmly tug at his pants leg. He immediately panicked and ran off, and he returned to the exact area later on expecting to see something that he most likely got stuck on, but the area was clear, nothing but graves below his feet.